Hello, my friend, and welcome to the 546th episode of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. Today, we have, all the way from Canada, after being on tour with KISS, the man, the legend, Steve Mastroianni. Great dude. I run in some similar circles as him, reached out to him and had him on right away when I'd heard his story. The title I gave the blog post is From Six Strings to Six Figures. And his book is Hobby Boss, Turn Your Passion into Profits. So what's interesting about Steve, and I learned a lot more during our interview, but he, even though he's artistic, he brings a left brain logic and process oriented mindset to his business, and he did from the very beginning. So he does not believe you have to be a starving artist, and I agree. So hearing his story, how he put everything together, how he transitioned during COVID, how he made the changes with having some kids, he positioned himself to be okay, despite being, traditionally a performing artist. And he was on tour in Canada with KISS. So the guy's got the chops, and his story, I think, will inspire you. And he's just a good dude. We had a lot of fun. So you are in for a treat. If you need some inspiration on sales, if you are disciplined and you can go through this on your own, check out makeeverysale.com. Get the on-demand program. And if you use promo code WEDDING, there's still a little discount being applied to that. So avail yourself of those savings while you can. If you need additional help, go to thesaleswhisper.com, hit the contact us. Let me know what's up, and I'll help you as best I can. So now let's bring on our guest. Steve Mastroianni, all the way from Toronto. Can we say rocking in the free world, man? I don't know. We'll get to that in a minute. Welcome to the Sales Podcast. How the heck are you?
Good, man. I'm so happy to be here, and it was funny how this all came about, but love the vibe, and really excited for today.
Yeah, dude. We had a mutual friend on social media, and I looked at what you're doing, and I saw your book. You obviously have a niche in music, which we'll get into, but you wrote Hobby Boss, Turn Your Passion into Profits Online. I'm like, amen. Let's talk, man, because I think most people, they make things too hard, right? And they overcomplicate things. And I like the way you've gone from, well, you're in both worlds, right? The quote real world, but also online and helping people create, which is so cool. I mentioned just briefly in our text exchange, I had Jason Sheff on years ago. He used to be the lead singer for Chicago, and I met him at a software conference. I had a booth, in Phoenix, and he comes walking up, and a friend of mine that was working for me, she was talking to him first, and I didn't recognize him. Right? This is Jason Sheff, singer of Chicago. I'm like, oh my gosh. He's like, hey, I want to buy your book. He said, hey, can you sign it? And I was like, dude, you should sign my book.
Yeah, please tell me that you said you're my inspiration, because that would be amazing if you did. But that's great, dude.
Yeah, and so I had him on, and he sang happy birthday to my mom because it was on her birthday. So you may have to sing happy birthday to my mom, but I mean, it's a couple months away. But he recognized he had to get into the entrepreneurial space as well. So kudos to you for recognizing that. Can you walk us through that? Like what was the transition? Because you're still a performing musician, right?
Well, so, okay, that's interesting you mentioned that about the getting into being an entrepreneur, because actually, so a lot of people would see a musician and they're thinking kind of like, woo-woo or airy-fairy artsy type right brain, right? And that's totally fine. I know a bunch like that, but definitely that's not me, because I actually got into music with an entrepreneurial mindset. So my parents split up when I was 11 years old, and I wanted to just smash the drums. I love Nirvana, and my dad bought me a drum kit. And basically the thought was, and I have zero idea how I knew this at 11, but I sort of reverse engineered my success. I'm like, okay, if I want, so I want to travel the world, okay? I guess maybe because like the divorce, I wanted to just like get out. I wanted to see the world, right? But if I'm going to travel the world, then it's going to be easier doing that with a bunch of other people, not just me. So, what would be great? Like, it would be cool to tour if we were, I love music. It's like maybe I put a band together. So let me put a band together. If I put a band together, that means that I need to learn how to write songs. And so I was a drummer at the time, and if I need to write songs, then that means that I should probably pick up a guitar. So one of my buddies had a guitar. He lent it to me. I taught myself how to play at least, a few chords, wrote some songs. And that was how I knew that I was going to make it. Like, it was very, very strategic. I engineered the whole thing, and basically and actually, what's interesting is when I was 8, I said I wanted to be an author, and the way that things all come full circle, I went into songwriting. That was my main sort of author type, scratching the itch, but I ended up, like, I was always looking at it from an entrepreneurial standpoint, and so that's why my bands that I got into, why they did well really quickly, because it wasn't just about like, hey man, let's write the best songs and let's just like someone's going to discover us. It was more strategic. Like, here's what we're going to do, this, then this, then this, then this, and so anyway, what the really short version of the music career is, one day my band's CD was on the desk of Gene Simmons, who wanted to sign bands up in Canada. His wife Shannon Tweed, she's Canadian, and he wanted to sign bands up here in Canada, and so we were the first signing to Simmons Records. And we toured all over North America, opening for Kiss, just like crazy adventures. And basically, that kind of got flipped on its head because my dad, he got sick. So he was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer back in 2013. And I dropped everything. I put it on pause, everything on pause, to be his caregiver. And so that's where I started the online business, because I was kind of going crazy being in one place. For over a long time, I needed a creative outlet, but then I also needed to pay the rent. And that's where the real like entrepreneurial venture of like starting a business came in. And one thing led to another, between being my dad's caregiver. He passed away, unfortunately, in 2015. But then, my music career, like the online business was starting to take off, and my music career, I was like, I'll get back to that in a little bit. And man, between all of that stuff happening, here I am with my online business and helping other people feel like rock stars instead of me being out there and performing. So right now I'm not performing for various reasons, but at least not in person. It's like, I'll do stuff on camera, but yeah, it was always entrepreneurial, man. Which is very strange. I understand that as a musician, it's a very, very strange thing.
So you brought up a lot of interesting things there, because I was with where the heck was I? Last Thursday we were wine tasting. Actually, we were wine tasting with our new priest.
That's great.
It's the nice thing about being Catholic. I tell all my Mormon friends, like, hey, come on over to our faith, man. You can still have a bunch of kids, but you can drink and fall back in love with them.
Bread
but I digress.
Wine, bread, wine, and fish.
But so he was like, what do you do? Blah, blah. I'm like, sales, marketing. But he's, creative. And I was like, there's a fine line between creative, because he like, what makes a salesperson, creativity? I said, yeah, creativity a little bit. But I said, it's discipline. Because at least in marketing, right, people can get too cute, too creative. And I was meaning to look it up, but it was around the .com bubble. Around 2000, maybe 99, there was some crazy Super Bowl ad, like these wolves were released and like attacking people on the field. Yeah. And everybody laughed and talked about it, but we don't remember the name of the company. And that company went bankrupt.
Yep.
I need to go look them up. But so we can be too creative. A friend of mine, Sam Bennett, I've had her on the show, The Organized Artist. I got a couple of her books over there. But she talks about, don't be that starving artist. Yep. Why does it seem that creativity and profitability seem to clash so often for most entrepreneurs and creative types?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack with that. I mean, I've always been kind of like full brain approach, like, so you got the best of both worlds type thing. And I know a lot of people who are like that, but I also know a lot of artists who, yeah, they feel guilty when it comes to selling their stuff. It comes, I think, from like there's an insecurity, there's a lack of confidence there, which is why I think they find an escape in their art. Everybody can become more secure and less anxious and less stressed and all that. But there's got to be something in that recipe that led them to become kind of like feeling unworthy of money. And the interesting part is that they'll live on ramen noodles and they'll kind of like become okay with that. And like, this is my life. It's like a limiting belief, right? And I never really had that aspect. Like, there was some stuff, I guess, being brought up Roman Catholic, like in an Italian, with an Italian background. There's kind of like, there's that guilt that's kind of like in there, that, certain things about what you deserve or don't. But yeah, I mean, I broke through that. Like so my parents splitting up, it was actually like, I mean, it was for the best. Some couples that just can't be together. I mean, I'd rather that they were apart and happy. But that was a like definitive moment in my life where I think that I became an adult really early, and I'm grateful for that experience, because yeah, like getting into self help or personal growth, getting into affirmations, things like all the different stuff, like all the gamut. I've spent like hundreds of thousands of dollars on coaching and different things like that, and so I do remember reprogramming that guilt or that like relationship with money. And I just feel like that stuff's not taught. And artists, whether they drop out of school or whether they don't go to school or like whatever, or the people who they hang out with, they aren't, from what I've seen, they're compared to business types and successful entrepreneurs. Like, if artists are only around those circles, they're not talking about reprogramming their relationship with money, or they're not talking about getting becoming more secure with what you offer to the world, or delivering value to the world and getting something that is the same or greater in return. Like, those conversations aren't happening. So I think it just comes to a lack of exposure to a lot of things that us as entrepreneurs, that we are kind of always around. It kind of like, when was the first time you learned about direct response or sales? Like, when was, like, it just seems like natural, like how you live and breathe. Artists, not so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's the whole limiting mindset. I've always said, I wrote a blog post years ago, and I refresh it every year and resend it. But it was, why do celebrities do drugs and salespeople need hugs?
I love that. Yeah, that's great.
Right, because you see Prince, Michael Jackson, I mean, just on and on and on, right? Whitney Houston, like they own the world, right? The world is banging down their doors, yet they feel unworthy. Mm-hmm. And I see salespeople that they'll hit a big lick and they're like, oh, they're unworthy, and they'll just self-sabotage. Instead of continuing like Q1, this huge growth and a big win, and just have an exponential year, they just plateau and even sink, because how we're raised, we think is the norm, and we're in these comfort zones. And I can't imagine the celebrities, right? Because they're like, dude, I was waiting tables last year, and now people are ripping their clothes off,
worshiping me. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of emotional blind spots, I think, for both parties you just mentioned there. I feel like, yeah, they're like with the salespeople, the self-sabotage and all that. Like, you got to be as robotic and relying on math like as possible in all of this. And I'm not saying I'm perfect, but if you're married and your wife ever says, like, do you have any emotions? It's just like, oh, this person's probably pretty good at business. You're probably pretty good at business, because like that, you just can't have that emotion. Like, I screwed up 3 things this week because of emotion. Maybe I feel this should be this way or whatever. And it's like, no, there's not really much room when it comes to running a business or being successful. There's not much room for emotion. You want to go, I call it data over beta. So beta being like brainwaves, like conscious brainwaves, like data, you have to like always rely on data. And even with artists always sabotage their stuff, thinking that things should be a certain way. Like, instead of giving fans what the fans want and what, like, establishing that brand. Some artists tank because they feel things like between the emotional instability, but also not looking at what worked in the past and doing more or evolving that a bit. They go completely, like on a tangent, and a lot of them ruin their careers. So a lot of them who don't stand the test of time, it's just sort of like a flash in the pan. Lots of one-hit wonders. They do that. They didn't just like double down on what worked. But it's a complex thing, man. Lots to unpack with artists. But I think it comes down to, like, when we're talking about artists like those iconic ones, just way too many pressures, dude. Like, we don't know what their world is like or was like in before they passed. Just so many social pressures, and they're not even a real person anymore. So I think that they just created their own jail cell, like their own prison.
Mm-hmm. So that brings up something. I mean, you're touring with Kiss, and then what you were just talking about, the sabotage. I just watched. I mean, not maybe a couple of months ago. I didn't watch the whole thing, but several episodes of this Kiss documentary.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and it was pretty good. And I didn't know the whole story. I was a fan of them growing up, but not a huge fan. My friends were like super big fan. I'd go to their house, listen to the albums, But man, they had so much conflict. I didn't realize.
Oh, for sure, dude.
The turnover and just good grief. But I see that a lot in business as well. People will come together, have a partnership, and there are so many hostile breakups.
Oh, dude, partnerships are hard, man. Like, it's because you have strong minds. Like, sometimes it works. Sometimes that conflict, it really works well because that's part of that spark. It's weird, like, that's very twisted, but yeah, especially in a band. I mean, you have Paul, like, I want to preface this by saying I didn't grow up a Kiss fan either, and it's funny how, like, Gene Simmons, how big of a influence he's been in my life, that, like, I mean, I heard mostly on the tour, the songs were stuck in my head, but I didn't grow up being a Kiss fan. And but I'm a Gene Simmons fan because, as an entrepreneur, I think it's incredible. He created a brand out of a band, but Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons being straight, just like sober, and they're just like all business. But then Peter Criss and Ace Frehley being a disaster. Yeah. And how that, I don't even know how they got together in the first place for that to, because they're so different. But yeah, they had to scrap. There was many lineup changes down the road. And Gene was telling me, he said that sometimes they'd be in the studio and, like, Ace would be so wasted that, like, he would, like, someone else would be recording his guitar parts for him.
Yeah, they filled in for him. Oh, yeah. He told him, he's like, you're not getting paid on this one because you didn't lay down any tracks for this. Oh, shit.
Yeah, man. And it's like, can you blame him? This is his empire that he's building,
Yeah, and I love the fact that he's clean, right? Like, he's got this wild man image, but he stayed clean and sober. I mean, that's legit in growing up in that world.
Yeah.
It's and I guess it is, on the one hand, you want to, marry and or, partner with an opposite so you can kind of watch each other's back. But then there is that conflict. So I don't know, man. It's I guess it's why there's always a need for sales and marketing and business consulting.
For sure. Totally.
There's always drama.
Therapy and coaches. Yeah, for sure, man.
So did you feel like, did your right brain, you think, slow down your left, or vice versa? Or did you have a good balance that actually propelled you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like, just like with anyone, entrepreneurs were insane people to be doing what we're doing. Like, I mean, just the principle of it in general, that I'm going to turn my ideas into money. Like, instead of just, why don't I just walk over here, do what this person tells me to do, and then I'm going to get a check at the end of it. Like, it's guaranteed, basically, like the concept of a job. And there's nothing wrong with a job. It's just, for us who are wired like this, that is our nightmare, when what we're actually doing is against all odds. Like, for example, in 2021, and this is not a brag at all, because, like, I'm not bursting at the seams with cash or anything like that. Like, I do pretty well, but my point is, I have 5 mouths to feed at home, and those mouths who I'm feeding, well, most of them are stressing me out so much that, like, sleep is reduced, and my twin boys, they're like throwing food all over the floor, food that I bought and, like, I'm paying for. I'm the breadwinner inside the house, and my wife, she was on medical leave,
But
and so
Steve, you do know because of inflation, the CDC has said that the 5 second rule is now 8 seconds.
yeah, for
You
sure.
can scoop that off the
For
floor,
sure.
all right?
Hey man, listen, dude, I was scooping that off the floor even at 10 seconds. No, anyway, so no, the that's great. I love that, the CDC. So the so as far as the like, look at the obstacle that these people who I'm feeding, like, there's so much stress that's coming back the other way. And I love them, don't get me wrong. Of course, they're my family, but also this is the weird part is, first of all, it's against all odds that the ideas still, even in like tumultuous situation, still have to go and then create cash and create systems to create more cash. But also the sick part is, I like that it's a Rubik's Cube. I like the challenge because I like, and this must be from like the author thing, I like that it's a challenge because of the story. Like Hobby Boss is a book, speaking of Roman Catholicism. It's longer than the Bible, and I'm proud of it. I'm super proud of the work. I think that's super important for people getting like losing their jobs during COVID, and there's people start their own businesses. There's so many reasons why I wrote it, but when I wrote it, I had my then at the time, so my son Alex, so they're twins and they were born right before the pandemic. But Alex would be sitting or would be sleeping on my shoulder, and like a pukey farting baby on my shoulder while I've got my iPhone and I'm writing Hobby Boss with my thumb. And when I'm doing that, I'm stressed because I want to write my book and I paid a lot of money for the publishing process and all these different things to happen. But above all that, I zoom out and I look at the situation and I'm like, this is a ridiculous situation. And this, being resilient in this, you talk about discipline and like being resilient in this circumstance so that I can provide for my family and also impact other people. I love that. And it's something that I know that story will help other people and inspire them that no matter what the obstacles that's in front of them, you can still persevere. That's what drives me, is that this, like, there's no such thing, there's no bad things can happen anymore in my life. Because, well, already I put my music career on pause to take care of my dad. My dad passed away. Like, the father figure in my life passed away. Like, and I'm still persevering through all those challenges. And the reason why I do it, I think inherently I'm a coach. I want to help other people. And I think for entrepreneurs, I think we're wired in a way where it's not even like we want to or need to. It's like in our DNA. We have to. Like, it's part of our existence. So yeah, anyway, I wanted to like put it full circle that it's like, it's a weird thing that we're up against, but we need to do it. It's part of who we are, what we live and breathe, you know?
Yeah, I think it was Gary Halbert. You know, he would talk about gun to the head marketing or back against the wall marketing, and some people thrive under that and others collapse.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it is, I think, in your DNA to a large degree, but you have to hone it. I would imagine you were nervous first time you stepped on stage, and maybe each time you got to a bigger stage, some nerves would kick in, right?
Oh, for sure. Everything is practice, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and also you got to look at what your mentors, like, you know, stand on the shoulders of giants. You're not just going to show up somewhere and know how to do something. I mean, that's very rare. Those are unicorns, but it comes down to, honing it, like looking at the resources that are out there. And if you could find, like, I just don't understand people who, they'll get a book and they'll say, oh, this was useless, or I didn't learn anything there. There's always one gold nugget in that thing to find out, even if it's an opposite way of thinking about it, or if it's reaffirming something you already believe. There's always something in there, and every day it's this constant, like, you know, molding process and polishing. So yeah, you definitely have to hone it, I believe. And the entrepreneurial sort of like that drive, that's just like how we show up. That's just how we get motivated. But when people fold, it doesn't mean that they weren't an entrepreneur. It just means they haven't found the recipe yet. Like, there's people who want to start their own thing, even with Hobby Boss. Like, you don't have to be there's a different spectrum of like entrepreneur. I think how crazy or how independent you can be. You can get into it and start your own business. I think most people have that in them, that they could have a side income, and like even an extra $500 a month could change your life. So you don't have to. You just have to find your recipe. Who's the person who you want to listen to? Who's the person who you connect with and you resonate with? There's so many options out there on the menu that just find what works for you. So if you collapse, you probably found the wrong thing. It's probably overwhelming you.
Yeah. I saw this thing not too long ago. It said, don't beat yourself up if you have to start over, right? Because you're not starting from scratch. You're starting from experience.
Yeah.
But we think, like I do jujitsu, right? You see it all the time. Like new guys, they go for one move, it doesn't work, and they just kind of lay there and give up.
This doesn't work.
Yeah. And it's like, well, we just practiced that move. So I'm aware of it. I'm looking for it. You have to realize how attack 1 opens up attack 2.
Yeah.
Right. I'm like, we were doing takedowns last week, and we had like a 4-step iteration, go for the right leg, boom, go for the left leg, boom. They counted that, go for the right leg again, go for the left leg this time. Each one builds on it. You're like, oh crap. Yeah, this is a series that I'm putting together. And once you start to see that, then it's just like, it's that Rubik's Cube, right? It's
once you understand it, you never understand it. Like you
right.
can't forget that. Like and even if you lose a fight, you're not starting from scratch. You're always starting from, like, it's never a blank canvas. That's what's so fun about it. I think my kids kind of like beat that out of my head. Like the inner perfectionist. I'm a recovering perfectionist, but I think that inner perfectionist in my brain is dead. Like that part of my brain is dormant right now, and from sleep deprivation and stress. And actually, I'm appreciative of it. My kids drive me nuts, but I'm appreciative of it, because between like having to provide for them, and also the fact that, like, again, the inner perfectionist isn't there, I'm just like quick and dirty all the way, move forward, get stuff done. I mean, if you want the best business advice, is put out a bunch of offers. And like, that's it. Like, just get good at making offers, and make offers every single day. And eventually people are going to say yes. Like, there's going to be a group of people who say yes. You just build up your list, build up the asset. And, like, if you don't have something to give them, promote someone else's thing. It's not that complicated. But speaking of self-sabotage, we just make it way too complicated for ourselves, get in our own way. And it really, a lot of business principles are very simple.
Yeah, that's all awesome. It's one of my digital programs called Make Every Sale, and I'm always learning. Right, I looked at this guy that I look up to, and he packaged his stuff. He said, "You got to come up with a brain dead offer that price it so low they don't even have to think about it." And I was like, "Oh, I was wanting to charge more." I'm like, "Okay, I lowered the price." And they sold. Then I had a Christmas promotion. Boom, I sold. And I'm having a Valentine's Day sale. Boom, made some more sales. I'm like, all right, people are coming in the system, and I make offers. I'm building the list, right? Repackaging the assets. Now they don't get access to me, right? You want access to me in the weekly calls, blah, blah, blah. That's a big upsell. But now at least I've got people that have spent $150.
Yeah.
Now they're more likely to spend more.
For sure. And what's cool is that you don't, like, that's just one way of doing it, is like reducing the price. You may have found a sweet spot there, but also if you want to increase the price, sometimes you can just jam it with like something that they don't have, like that, something that's going to increase the value exponentially. And it's like, sweet, now they'll pay an extra $200 for that. Yep. Because you added something in that's worth $2,000. And that value, like, it's got to be disproportional. It's got to be where they feel like they're getting way more out of it, and it's gotta hurt a little bit, where it's like, holy smokes, like, this is irresistible, this is an easy yes offer. And that's also, again, it's the fun, like pulling the levers. And now when you start seeing results, that's something that started as neurons in your brain that's turning into cash in your bank account. It's addictive, but it's just like you're a kid playing a video game. That's at least how I feel about it, and that's why I love it.
Yeah, you're talking about promote someone else's stuff. I've made a lot more money as an affiliate or a reseller or certified partner than on my own stuff. I've got my own stuff, and that is growing, but I've been doing this now 16 years. So I think people, they got to do their own thing. Kind of like maybe a band, right? I'm not any good unless I create my own stuff. Like, well, but you can get good being a cover band until you.
Some bands, they broke through with a cover, for sure.
Yeah.
That's how, and that's how you could get started. You could build up your list by promoting. Look, there's no shortage of opportunity out there. If you say, like, what was I just using? Okay, so this is going to be kind of gross, but like, so because my kids, they're young, that they can't blow their nose. I was looking for different solutions of like how to like get it out of them, right? And anyway, just without being graphic, I found this thing that's like a little vacuum cleaner, and but when I use these things and they work, I'm not going to shut up about it. If you tell me like, my son is like, his nose is all stuffed up, what am I going to say? First thing, oh man, you got to get this rhino snot sucker. This thing is unbelievable. And I'm it's like I'm working for them and they're not paying me anything, but I'm going to be all about it, and they feel my excitement about it. It's all super genuine. I talk about the story, and like Mikey, my son, is he's kind of sucky, like he's a sucky baby, and so this thing, he starts crying, and like I tell my story of it, but then I show how this thing helped overwhelm it, and then it helped him sleep at night, the testimonial. All this stuff's baked into a real genuine story. They're not paying me anything for that. So if you're that type of person where you get excited about different things, use different things that are out there. And just that company probably has an affiliate program, and just go out and you don't have to like be super aggressive about it or anything. You just be genuinely happy about it. Whether you shoot videos on YouTube, or whether you talk to people who are also mothers or parents, whatever the product is, but you can get paid to do things like that where you're an affiliate, and that's how you start building up your email list. And then you come out with your own course on how to the best way for to get over kids' sicknesses, because kids get sick, kids are gross, and like they're gonna be sick every month, and here's how to do it. And now you have this info product for mothers and parents all of a sudden, and who are you gonna promote it to? Your list. And now they're gonna buy that thing, and it's just like it keeps building and building and building. But it comes from that. If you start this path, it comes from that genuine excitement for something. And like you just said, you've been doing it for so long, and along the way, you probably thought, hey, if I promote my own stuff, then that's a whole other revenue stream, and it has the ceiling. The potential is limitless.
That's what I did. I was a product of the product. I stumbled across Infusionsoft, bought it for myself, liked it, used it. People were like, man, you're growing. I'm like, hey, you can get this tool too, and I can help you with it. Boom, boom, boom.
Awesome.
And you probably you're a young whippersnapper. You probably don't remember Victor Kiem.
The name
Remington.
Remington. Oh, nice.
I like the shaver so much, I bought the company.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I'm not just the president. I'm the client. That's the Hair Club for Men. But anyway.
Hair Club for Men. Yep. It's like people don't think about it. I feel bad of recommending something. You do it anyway. Might as well get paid for it.
There you go. No, that's like right there. And that's what we were just talking about with the musician who's kind of guilty or feels unworthy about the thing. It's just like when it comes to sales or context like that, some people get like squeamish for some reason. And getting comfortable with that. And I think to some degree, I think that the world changing in 2020, I think it kind of helped because it sort of put a bit of a fire under people's butts, to get things going. So they kind of had to figure some things out. But that's a big one to get over because you're doing it anyway. You're going to recommend a movie. You're going to if the thing I can understand if the thing is like if it's like multi-level marketing where there's a whole system behind it and like you have to have these weird meetings and stuff like that where you can't talk about the thing so much unless like it's all this script stuff. But if you're talking about how like I got this Remington shaver and like you got to check this thing out. This thing is crazy. It's like sweet. I'll check it out. Cool. And then like you just give them your link when you do it, and then you get some cash out of it, and then you just repeat that process. It's nothing. You're helping them, they're helping you, and it's actually three-way. You're helping them, they're helping you, and you're helping the company to keep doing it. Like it's nobody loses in that scenario.
Yeah. It's funny talking about snot, right?
Yeah.
We got a bunch of kids, right? 7 up to 24, and we moved here back to California. My wife's family and her oldest cousin. He's got a couple boys, and we always meet at Easter here at our neighborhood. It's a nice park, and so one time, one of the kids, they were little, and Paul was holding her, and she just had a big old dried booger in her nose, and he just reaches up, grabs it, and flicks it off. My wife saw it, goes, That's what a dad would do, right? Like, you're not grossed out. Like, oh, well, it happens.
Gotta do what you gotta do for sure, man.
Take care of business.
That's great. There you go, man. That's awesome. 7 kids.
So I want to go back. You were talking about, like musicians and, they want to get creative, and instead of giving what the fans want, like I got to, plot my own course, blah, blah, blah. But you see it in business as well. And, on the one hand, like if it's working, don't mess it up.
Never.
But on the other hand, it's like eventually something might stop working. And if it catches you flat-footed, you might be dead.
Yes.
So, but what's that balance, right? Because I talking about Chicago, right? Jason gave me passes when they came to Pechanga here in Temecula, and I got to meet the band, and I'd never seen them before, but some of the original founding members are as old or older than my dad, right? They've been singing Saturday in the Park for like 50 years, literally. And they sounded perfect, right? They didn't phone it in, man. They were pros, and I appreciated it. But man, the discipline to do something, because that's like a kind of a curse, right? Like bittersweet. Like, hey, you made one of the top 10, 20 songs, even top 100 songs of all times, but now you have to play it every single day.
And you know what, man? That's a great example. Chicago's a great example. I don't know if it's because of our early chat when you mentioned Chicago, or because a potential client wanted to do a Chicago song. But for the past few days, I've been on some Peter Cetera kick. I don't know, like, I mean, there's a song that he had with Cher. I mean, this is definitely not super rock star of me to admit this, but there was a song that he did with Cher called After All that I just think it's an amazing song, super catchy. And anyway, and Peter Cetera's voice is ridiculously like unique and cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Peter Cetera was the lead singer of Chicago for a while.
Yep.
And then he saw that Peter Gabriel went solo, and Phil Collins at that time also had a pop career. No, this is what his reference was. Phil Collins had a pop career so he had Genesis, but he also, off of tour, they'd align, the management would align it so that he would have his solo career when Genesis wasn't touring, and would go back and forth. Peter Cetera was like, hey, get me some of that. And management was like, no, thank you. And Peter Cetera was like, actually the band was not cool with it. And so Peter Cetera was like, all right, Next Time I Fall and Glory of Love, all these different things here coming out. Peter Cetera went solo, and he wanted to have both things going. But he ended up doing, arguably a bigger career, a solo career. These businesses or these bands, some people, like the trumpet player or whoever is in the band, like they're going to probably stick to what their role is and all that. But for like the star types, the ones who are like the natural leaders and like the CEO, I think having a lot of things on the go I just think you have to. I think for the variety, to scratch the different itches, I mean, you got to make sure that your core product, if that's working, you don't mess with it. But you also have to make sure that there's some other things on the go, because if this core product, like you said, if that goes south, then you have to have some other things on the go. And so I'm not one to like put all my eggs in one basket. I've got so many things going on, and to some degree, sometimes to my detriment, because it takes a little longer to make things happen. But in the long run, it's, if I have 6 or 7 things happening at once, I've got my songwriting, I've got Hobby Boss, and I've got the so coaching business owners, and as well as coaching musicians. Like these different facets, these are all there because they're different revenue streams. And also, if one goes south, or if I get super burnt out on one of them, I've got this other one over here, and that's a bit of a sanctuary, in my opinion. You could create this sort of sanctuary situation for yourself if you have multiple things going on. But here's the key. They all have to feed each other. You notice I didn't say like I have a pizza place as well that I go down the street, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and like maybe that might be cool, but all of my stuff feeds each other. So in Rockstar Mind, I do experiments, and then on the Hobby Boss side of things, I show my clients those experiments, what worked or what didn't. I help them with their business. Like if it was detached from each other, then it wouldn't make sense. It would be way too stressful. But you have these multiple streams of income and multiple projects. They all have to feed each other. So I think that that's actually the solution for it. And it gives a nice variety for the entrepreneur, but it's, and you do as much as you can handle, but it's also hedging your bets that like if one of those goes south, then you're at least not screwed over. You know what I mean?
Are you saying that's why McDonald's went from hamburgers to also doing breakfast instead of getting into bowling?
Oh, dude, yeah, exactly. Yeah, Ray Kroc, yeah. He's a smart guy for sure, man. Actually, no, you know what? So that guy's super smart with real estate. Knowing that McDonald's is a real estate company and not and not fast food. Like that's on another level of thinking, man. What is your business? What the business actually is? Like that one's a real estate company. Very cool. And franchising.
Yeah, I heard that example. We used to live in Austin, and it might have been somebody from McDonald's came and spoke to one of the business schools there. Said, hey, what business is McDonald's in? Everybody's like, is this a trick question? Hamburgers, fast food? He's like, no, real estate.
Yeah.
They find prime real estate and they figure out the best way to monetize it. It just happens to be fast food.
Yeah.
But they own real estate.
Yeah, and then also they perfected systems, and like nobody has their systems down like McDonald's.
Yeah,
it's almost a verb. Like McDonald's-ize the business. It's super cool, man. What they created there.
So, how do you stay fresh and motivated and excited? To perform the same thing. Like I don't know if you ever remember the Dunkin' Donuts commercial back in the day. Gotta make the donuts. He's waking up at 4 a.m. Gotta make the donuts. Do you ever go like, oh shit, if I got to play this song one more time, I'm going to eat my guitar. I mean, but you got to gig, you got to deliver, right? How do you stay fresh?
There's that obligation for sure. And I think like even using that as an analogy, like with performing, because like more recently, performing is more like coming into the business and like broadcasting something. Like I have different online shows and stuff, and like coming in and talking about the same thing and performing that song, so to speak, like coming in with the same thing and making it fresh. I think part of it again is the obligation, that knowing that, I mean, this is how I feed me and my family. That's one of the things, like make it happen. But I remember, I mean, even on tour, going up on stage, every show would be different because the vibe, the venue that we were in, that's different. Or maybe I'll play it on a different guitar, or maybe there's something that I'll try a different arrangement of it. Like, so for example, like when we go to the solo section this time, maybe it'll be twice the length, or maybe we'll go like super quiet and then like build it up. Like it's innovating. It's innovating. Like it's not inventing so much. It's like it's innovation. And yeah, I mean, sometimes I think we forget to have fun. Like that's from a business standpoint. I think that very often fun is removed from the situation because it's like, okay, what are my numbers? What are my metrics? Blah, blah, blah. But it's also your customers need to know that, like, especially now I come from more of an info product world, like e-learning, where I'm coaching people, things like that. And so nobody really wants to buy a course. No one wants more work to do. They just want the result. And so it's got to be fun. There's got to be something about it that's fun. And so that would be, I guess, my long, short answer would be you have to find something that's fun in it. And there's like some element in there that you could tweak to add some fun to it.
What would you think, or what have you experienced, like talking about innovation? Let's say you got some just metal thumping, rocking song that's like super popular, but like you come out and just do it acoustically one day. Would the fans be like pissed off because they didn't see the original, or they'd be like, I was there.
Part of that. Yeah, I was part of that.
When he did it different,
Yeah.
And it may not even been quite as good, but it's so different and unique. Like,
dude, for sure. And actually, it's funny because we talked about Kiss. I bet that the people who, like, imagine the diehards who wanted to be at that first show where they took the makeup off. That they wanted to be there. I was at the first show when they took the makeup off. Like that was a big deal when the paint came off. And they, by the way, like Gene does all his own, still to this day, which is crazy. But yeah, like they imagine being at that show. So I think that for sure you'll piss people off. I think you have to piss people off. I think, look, that's actually lukewarm does not work for business. Like vanilla, there's no one cares. It's too noisy. It was always noisy, but like now more than ever, you're not going to get anyone's attention with vanilla or lukewarm. So you got to be pissing some people off, because when you're putting, as long as a genuine message, if you're not pissing people off, then you're probably not attracting a legion of super fans. Like, you're just not, because
Yeah.
what you say has to have some kind of it's got to trigger some emotion. And so for some people, like, let's just say, for example, if Kiss said, we're going to take the paint off, we're taking the mask off, or the makeup off, first, like, for sure some people burnt their records, for sure. But then other people were like, "Oh, this is cool! Like a whole new side, a new face to the band, so to speak."
Mm-hmm.
And they became even more invested in
Yeah.
Kiss. And then because Gene, for sure, he never told me this specifically, but I bet one of the reasons why they did the taking the makeup off is so that then they could put it back on.
Yeah.
And the it's like wrestling. Like, I grew up a huge wrestling fan, and it's just like the guy is the heel for a little while, and then what happens? Then he finally, like, turns back to the good side. He knocks out the bad guy, and then the crowd goes crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't have the sweet without the sour.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and watching that documentary, they did have to change. They had that some turmoil, and they were kind of mediocre, but then the big hair bands were totally killing
Taking
it.
over.
And
Yeah.
and they had to do something, right? But it's funny you mentioned pissing people off. Like Dan Kennedy always says, if you don't piss somebody off by noon, you ain't marketing.
You ain't marketing. I love it. I love Dan Kennedy. Yeah, for sure. Love it.
And I remember a guy that I followed for many years down in Austin has done a lot in radio and television, and he was talking about, like, back in the day with focus groups and whatever, when they would play a song, if they didn't have at least 10% of the focus group say, "I absolutely hate this song," then it wasn't a hit.
Yeah.
They needed those strong emotions.
Yeah.
And if everybody was like, "Yeah, it's pretty good," then they're like, "Okay,
No,
it's a dud."
It's a dud.
So very nice, man. All right. So you got a big old book, huh? I just looked at 474 pages.
But
There better be a lot of pictures.
Yeah, there are pictures, but I also recorded an audiobook, and I did that. I love audiobooks. I recorded the audiobook myself, and I'm surprised I could still speak after that, but that's why I did that one. The book is a reference. It's everything that over 7 years. In my first, what was it, like 5 years of business, going from from six strings to six figures is basically the whole idea. And it's just for someone who is either someone who's starting out and wanting to know where to start. I take it like step by step, just formulating everything that worked for me, whether it was a course that I took or anything, just putting it all together so that you don't have to. And because the book could be intimidating, but you don't have to go to part number 4. Like, just do the steps at the beginning, just get things rolling, and at the very least, like, I think it'll be super insightful for people who have businesses. This will definitely fill in the gaps, a bunch of gaps that I had to kind of go, like, I was on step 4, 5, 6, but I didn't have 1 and 2 going, and so you can go in there and clean things up. And so a lot of people are getting great results from both perspectives, whether they have an existing business or if they just want to get one started from scratch.
Yeah, very cool. So it's hobbybossbook.com, right?
That's correct.
Very cool. I am linking out to it. Well, cool, man. Thanks for carving out some time and sharing your words of wisdom.
Dude, thanks so much for having me, man. It was a blast.
All right, Steve. Now, it looks like Mastroianni, but
Technically, it would be like Mastroianni would be like with the Italian. It would, Mastroianni is the way to say it over here.
There you go. All right.
Cool,
You say
buddy.
it much better than me.
Awesome,
Steve from
brother.
Toronto.
There you go. Thanks so much, Wes.
Thanks for coming on the show, man. It's
Awesome.
been great.
Take care, brother. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
I told you he was a good guy. Love talking about people understanding both left brain, right brain, putting it together. We are complete beings. We just don't always act as such. You need some creativity in your logic. You need some logic in your creativity. I think Steve has mastered both, and he's thriving because of it. From 6 strings to 6 figures. So check out his book, Hobby Boss: Turn Your Passion into Profits. By taking that systematic, disciplined approach, he was able to create a life of his choosing, and you can too. So you may be lacking in one of the areas, right? Maybe you approach everything very logically. Maybe you approach everything, you're that starving artist. Maybe you need someone to come in from the outside and shake things up, help solidify some of the things that just is not flying for you right now. I just signed up for a golf lesson. Haven't had a golf lesson in forever because I don't golf that much anymore. But, I get jiu-jitsu lessons 6 days a week. But I remember the first time I had a recorded golf lesson, and the lesson I'm signing up for it's a 1 hour video recorded session. But the first time I took this, it was in like August of '93. I was in Jacksonville, Florida, and I remember because I had gone out to see my dad just before I shipped out to Korea. And this guy did the lesson, and I literally took about 5 swings at the club, and the rest of the time we spent analyzing my swing. And 1993, that was cutting edge. He had a camera from above looking down at me from the front and from behind, so we could see in 3D how I was moving. He was analyzing, the line of my wrist and my arms, my takeaway, my follow through. How was my head shifting left to right? How was it shifting up and down? And so just 5 swings, but having that outside approach, vantage point, 5 swings made all the difference. Same thing in jiu-jitsu. You can't figure something out, and it never fails. Like I'm literally right now going through trying to apply a technique that I saw online. A guy that I met in Maine last year at the Origin Immersion Camp. He's a black belt. He's got his own little tips on Instagram that he just started, and he showed this cool move. And I've tried it yesterday, tried it today. I'm not getting it. I'm getting close, but I'm not getting it. And despite looking at it, studying it, and it's literally, it takes 3 seconds to do this move. But of course, your opponent has some say-so. But by not having him there with me, it's taken me longer to perfect this. And I just didn't have the opportunity. Sometimes I'll go early or stay late and work with one of the guys, and they'll give me some pointers. But it usually takes an experienced, neutral third party to take a look to find the gaps. It applies in music, jiu-jitsu, golf. It applies in your business, right? So if you're struggling in one of those areas, let me know. Go to thesaleswhisperer.com. You know what? On second thought, do this. Just text me. 714-369-8004. That is my real cell phone number. I've had that number since December of 2004. It was a Vonage number back in the day, but that is my cell phone, 714-369-8004. Shoot me a text. Tell me your name, what you want to talk about, and we'll hop on a call and see if we can find a way to work together. How you like them apples? Thanks for listening. I'll go sell something.